All right, so for today's episode, I'm just jumping right into it. No fancy intro. You probably know, well, you definitely know from the episode title, but it's that time of year, so it's probably not unsuspecting that I'm going to be covering 2025, of course, the year that just passed, if you are indeed tuning into this anytime around like January or February of 2026. And going to, of course, reflect on some things and also focus on the upcoming year to see what changes I want to make, reflect on where I am as a wise, mature podcaster, traveler now. And yeah, just kind of inform you about my travels and maybe give you some insights, some recommendations, some tips, some inner thoughts, feelings, and reflections that maybe you too can connect to, as I'm sure you're also making some resolutions or maybe hopefully planning some trips of a lifetime or some things you really want to do this year. And let's just kind of connect on those sorts of topics. So to start off, on a recap of 2025, let's talk about the countries that I visited. We can also talk about some domestic places, I guess, but maybe it's a little bit less interesting, a little bit less exciting and sexy, dare I say. Anyway, the countries I visited were three new ones. Shocker. Going to be Nicaragua, Guatemala, and Costa Rica. All three are in Central America, of course. This was a new part of the world for me. Mexico is technically North America, but it kind of connects into this area of Latin America. But anyway, this new part of the world, I was really excited to visit because it's famous for its volcanoes. It's famous for its biodiversity. Lots of like the different species that you can see. The wildlife has beautiful beaches in some areas as well. Of course, Spanish is the main language here, so it's a good time and place for me to practice my Spanish and still learn some more. And it's a lot closer of a flight going to Central America than some of the places I've traveled before, like Southeast Asia and so on. So anyway, also, we visited these countries during the kind of end or last half of winter, that kind of time, because, as you may know, I live in the USA, and you can hear those salt trucks going by me right now because it is a cold, frigid winter. So no matter what, every year I like to try and kind of be a little bit of a snowbird and prioritize traveling to get out of the winter, misery. So Central America was a great opportunity for me to do this because closer flights means cheaper flights as well, of course, shorter flights. And we've been to Mexico, and there are some warmer places maybe you could visit, like the Caribbean or maybe some parts of Europe, kind of, but it's not like warm. Maybe it'd be like 60s and places in the Caribbean I've noticed from trying to do some research, and maybe you can let me know if there's more to this than I'm able to discover so far. It's not as easy to like travel them. They feel more like resorty, like obviously touristy, but not in like a way where you can like travel and go from place to place. Maybe you can find Airbnbs and kind of like budget out as like a longer traveler. So anyway, although there are lots of beautiful places in the Caribbean that we were interested in visiting, maybe like the Bahamas or maybe Barbados or St. Lucia and Aruba and so on. Maybe they're individual island countries, and so they're a little bit harder to hop around to if you're traveling for like longer than like a week, or a couple weeks. If you're traveling for a couple months, which is what we did for the Central America trip I just outlined. So that's a place I want to visit too. It looks beautiful. The beaches look beautiful. I'm sure the food's really good as well. But Central America just checked a lot of boxes. It's very popular for backpackers. They kind of start from Mexico or South America, and they'll work their way across Central America and do this beautiful Latin American trip, including like rainforests and Mayan ruins and food and dancing and culture and gorgeous scenery, beautiful beaches. So it really is an incredible place. And those countries were really fun to visit, although the actual time I had there was probably, at least my experience time, was heavily overshadowed by some really unfortunate things, which made it a really terrible trip in some aspects. But I'll get more into that. Should I start with the positive or the negative? I'll start with the positive. So now that I've told you those like three countries I visited, of course, I did some stuff in the USA, but it's mostly more local, like stuff in the Midwest. There's a really beautiful tulip festival that is in a town called Holland, Michigan, and it does bring in lots of tourists from the Midwest, not from like across the country. It's not that big, but it's like a Dutch settlement. So around the springtime, they have beautiful tulips planted all throughout the city, and there's like a windmill kind of like village area you can check out. Really cool, really beautiful. Some parts are slightly tacky. It doesn't quite feel like the Netherlands, although they do their best to try. I've never been to the Netherlands. That's a place I'd love to go as well. But besides that, didn't really do too much traveling later in the year because I dealt with some difficult things, and I'll probably get into those later just to kind of share things a little bit. So anyway, let's focus on the fun stuff. And I kind of just wrote down some generic little categories to be like kind of like a little bit of an awards or highlights part of my year of traveling. And this would, of course, apply to those countries I outlined earlier. That is Nicaragua, Guatemala, Costa Rica. I'm like having a hard time remembering them, even though it's only 3. So let's start with hidden gem, because this is fun. And when you travel, it's kind of hard to plan. I really have a strong difficulty doing this because there are the places that are like the top of the list. They're popular, but they're popular for a good reason, but they're going to be busy. Maybe there'll be like things you have to do, I mean like you really should do, but they might not be your most memorable in some other ways, because sometimes the magic is found off the beaten path, and of course it's always worth exploring and finding new places on your own. But sometimes when you research, you can find out places that are, they're rated, but they don't have as much attention and attraction. And we did that. And the place that fit this hidden gem category for that very reason is Ometepe Island on Nicaragua. And just for reference, I've done a whole podcast with Vanessa. It was actually when we were back in Costa Rica, probably looking a little bit more tanner and feeling the nice, Caribbean vibes. But we outlined Nicaragua, and we really highlighted how much we loved Ometepe Island, because just a little brief kind of overview. It is a small island, relatively small. Well, some islands are big, some are tiny. Pretty small island, located on Lake Nicaragua. So it's not an island in the ocean. It's an island in a lake, but it's a really massive lake. It's one of the biggest freshwater lake in the Americas. Doesn't quite compare to the Great Lakes where I'm from in Michigan, but that doesn't mean the lakes here aren't small at all, because they actually are filled with bull sharks, who have made their way from the ocean there, and maybe over time the water levels started to sink, so the access to the ocean was cut off. I did the research on it before, but I forget the specifics. And you actually get like legit like waves. Maybe you can't surf. I don't know. Maybe you could surf. I think you probably could on Lake Nicaragua. It's that big of a lake. You can see the other side, but it's massive. Anyway, so Ometepe Island is located on that lake. You can take a ferry. It only takes like about an hour. Sometimes it can be chill. Sometimes it can be really rough waves on like a smaller boat maybe. And the island is magical because it has 2 volcanoes, 2 massive, beautiful volcanoes that you can see. And there are nice places. There's some waterfalls you can visit. There's some kind of like quiet bohemian kind of like areas and restaurants for you to check out. There's really nice swimming holes. There's some waterfalls you can check out. It's just a really great place to take things slow. Of course, it's known to tourists and especially backpackers, but if you go outside of the main port town, it's very quiet. It's very sleepy. I always tell people, imagine Tulum like 40 years ago or something, where it has those bohemian jungle vibes. You can feel the culture there still, but it's not completely like overrun by tourism, and the prices are still affordable for that reason. And you can just cruise around on a scooter. The roads are pretty well paved, and just kind of explore as you go along, get some viewpoints, stop somewhere for a quick little bite, go to this beach and just like hop in the water and cool off and look at the volcanoes behind you and see like local farmers and people just walking around, taking in life slow. It's really amazing. It really is an incredible place. And definitely for me, I think it's my ultimate highlight for my trip in Central America. And it's known to Central America for people backpacking, but it doesn't compare to some of the other major locations, which we'll talk about and definitely have more tourism. So anyway, that's my hidden gem. And now I want to talk about my best food. Favorite food, just overall, because food's a big part of why I travel. I love food, especially I'm a vegan too. So because I put a lot of effort and time in finding like vegan food, hopefully vegan food that's good, it's really fun when I figure out new dishes or new cuisines when traveling, which I always strive to eat local food, not just like things that I can eat, things that I can eat that are hopefully the most local or regional. And this is a very popular dish in the Caribbean and also Central America in general, because it's all kind of like not connected by land, but connected maybe with trading and like peoples and I don't say races, but diasporas, I guess, or like ethnicities from this area. But anyway, the dish I'm talking about is going to be tostones / patacones. I think they're the same thing. And these are plantains. And you've probably heard of plantains. They are very similar to bananas, but they're more starchy. And if you eat the ones that are unripe, I forget the name of them, plátanos maduros are the sweet ones, I'm pretty sure. But if you have the green plantains when they're like super unripe, picture a really green stiff banana, and you cut them up, you fry them on both sides, and then you flatten them and then you fry them again. It's like a big, crispy hash brown, but like a banana hash brown. It's not like sweet like bananas, but it has banana notes. Man, they're delicious. They're so good. And what you can do with them is you can put some beans on them. You can put some guacamole, some not agua fresca. What's the name of it? Salsa. I can't think of the name of it. It's salsa, but it's a mixture of like tomatoes, onions, lime, and cilantro, and maybe some other stuff too. But it's so good. It's so good. And the plantains here are so good. The ingredients are so good and fresh. And a lot of cuisines in this part of the world, they'll eat like plantain chips or sweet plantains or the starchy plantains, like the tostones I talked about. So I love them. I knew they existed, but never really tried them that much. And I had them like in every country in Central America, and now I make them at home too, all the time. They're so freaking good and delicious. They can be like an appetizer. They can be part of a plate filled with other things, maybe like rice, beans. Maybe they have like a curry or something separate. So freaking good. I love them. And let's now talk about, I'll do a little sandwich. So I started with good. I'll cover the bad, and then I'll talk about like my favorite highlights too, besides like those categories. So what made this trip horrendous? It's like because I was thinking in my head before doing this, let's make a worst moment category, like best moment, worst moment. But worst moment is like so much more broad. It's all happened very in a short period of time, because before I went on this trip, unfortunately, and what was really scary to me is I was dealing with a really bad YouTube hack, because podcasting is something I do for fun. Hopefully it turns into like a potential like revenue source or income stream, but I like talking about my travels in more of a long form kind of medium rather than making my guides. And if I do the long form medium, I can give more information and not spend like hours and hours trying to get all the visuals set up. I can just kind of like do a little bit of research and just talk about my feelings and my recommendations and advice. And if you have more interest, you can look at my YouTube videos and maybe you can see more visuals for specific areas or things I talk about. So anyway, but the YouTube guides and videos, that's like my main part of this, is my main business relating to travel and content creation. So before I left, this was around like January, and I think I left in early February. My YouTube got hacked because, unfortunately, there was a very smart hacker, or maybe I'm just a little bit stupid, but I get lots of like spam emails on trying to look maybe to like fish my information and stuff. So anyway, I got an email and they were offering to do a collaboration with GoPro. I'm like, wow, that's really cool. That's like my travel niche. That sounds legitimate. It was really well written. The email looked pretty legit. It was like at GoPro.com, but I'm like, oh, maybe this is an email from someone that like works with the company and they're just using their own personal email, which is kind of a little stupid and silly. But it was really well written, and they had like a little link for their LinkedIn and like a name. So I looked up the person. They were on LinkedIn. It's a real account. I found their name. And their name on LinkedIn says they actually work for GoPro. So I'm like, okay, that seems legit. And anyway, so I messaged back saying, hey, I'm definitely interested. I'd like to hear more about this opportunity. And I said, sure, here is like the information about pricing and like the specifics. It seemed all really favorable, but all like very in line with previous brand deals, the kind of information and specifics they go over. And they said, well, what you need to do though is like, if you're interested in doing this, like we can do like a call, but if not, if you have any questions, reach out. But they're very like informational, so it didn't seem like I needed to have any more questions. But I said, here's a link, or for the DocuSign, you need to click it here to download the program for it. And I'm like, oh no, now that I hear it, it sounds so ridiculous. Because I've used DocuSign before, and normally you just have like an account on the web page, and then you just kind of click on it and go to it in your browser. But this version was a program you download, and I said, here's like your login information for to make your account or something. So I did. Nothing happened, and then like I just tried again. Nothing happened, and then within like seconds, I get a notification on my phone. Was this you? device somewhere else logged into your email, and then like a notification immediately after, password change. I mean, notification right after. It's kind of like getting me anxious and angry talking about this again. And I think I talked about this already before slightly, but next notification. Backup phone number change. Notification again. Second backup change. Notification again. Added physical passkey. So anyway, I was hacked instantly, locked out of my YouTube account, locked out of my email linked to my YouTube account. And it was used for like these kind of like cryptocurrency scams, and my account was terminated. And this happened like 4 times. So it happened leading up to my trip, but then I got it sorted. I was able to reach back out to YouTube. Please, I'm starting to feel those terrible feelings of anxiety and stress. This hasn't happened in a long time, but knock on wood, please be over. Please be over. I've changed a lot of things to try and prevent this from happening again. So anyway, I was able to get my YouTube account back before the trip, luckily, reaching out to YouTube help system and stuff. Probably, I don't know if you care that much about all the specifics. So I'll try and move on with it. So anyway, keep that in mind. That happened right before the trip. What happened later on in the trip, when we were in Guatemala, is I was planning on teaching a little bit, because my other job is I teach English online, remotely, teach English as a second language. And this has been a blessing for me because it allows me to make money when I want to. I can choose my own hours completely. There's no pressure from the company. As long as I have Wi-Fi and I have the time and the students are willing to book me, which thankfully they are. I think I do a pretty good job. I can open my slots and I can teach when I travel if I want to, or if not, I could take that like whole week off or something if I want to. So we were staying someplace for a little bit of a longer period of time. We had good internet. I had a good desk to do it. I'm like, great. I can like make a little bit of money in between the trip rather than just spending every day and not like kind of making that back, in a way. So what happened was somehow my computer just broke. It was overheating a little bit earlier on in the trip, I noticed, in Nicaragua. And I'm like, oh, this is weird. But I'm still editing videos. I'm still teaching some classes as well. And then in Guatemala, it just stopped. It wouldn't turn on. It would not turn on at all. If it did, it would go for a little bit and then it would like freeze and shut back off. And this was a massive problem because it's great that I can teach and I have that flexibility. But the flexibility I do not have is if I get booked for those classes, I need to teach those classes. And if I don't, my job is in massive jeopardy. You can miss like a few classes, like every contract. And I was going to teach like 12 classes or something. I think if you miss 6, then your contract is under review for termination. So that happened. And luckily though, my beautiful wife, Vanessa, she had her computer with her. It's a Mac. I figured why don't I just download the teaching program in her Mac, and then I could teach as like a fail-safe, a backup. I don't know. I could be messing it up. So anyway, what happened is we did that. We downloaded the app, but for some reason it would not allow the microphone and screen to work. It would not like allow the computer to give it permission. I don't know if it's Vanessa's computer. I don't know if it's like a app that's supposed to be better on like Windows. So like working with the Mac operating system, or Apple operating system, whatever it is, it couldn't give permissions. So anyway, I could enter my classroom, but I could not turn on my microphone and turn on my camera. So it would get marked as teacher no-show, teacher's fault. So the cancellation would still go against me. So what happened was I was not able to teach any of these classes. So if I miss these classes, not only am I not able to teach them, I'm deducted money because it's my fault. So I'm costing like the students money or something. So that money's taken away from me. Man, this really sucks. And I don't want to make this like 40 minutes of going over all the bad things that happened, but there's some stories and it really does compile. So anyway, so that happened, unfortunately. I tried desperately to fix my computer, tried to find a repair shop to fix it. They couldn't really figure out anything immediately to help. They had some ideas, but it still wasn't working. Vanessa's computer wasn't working as a backup. I was able to enter the classroom, but I wasn't able to teach. So what happened is it's like, this is giving me a bad reputation for my students. So if I try and book classes again, they could see my percentage of being able to teach classes. They might not want to book with me. Or these previous students that trusted me, now they don't trust me at all and they're going to find another teacher. So pretty sucky. So what happened was whatever. The stress was bad, unfortunately. And a little bit after, I got an email from my job that hired me saying that they noticed I missed a bunch of classes and my contract was going to be under review. So I'm potentially going to be fired. And I was really stressing out, to say the least. And I tried saying, well, hey, it wasn't that I didn't show up. I tried to show up. I'm having technical problems. Can you cut me some slack? And they said, well, we'll reach back out to you in like 2 weeks when we've reached our decision. So I'm like, oh no, the computer's broke. And now I probably lost one of my jobs. So anyway, and that was coupled at the same time. I'll get into like why this is kind of a positive in some other ways later. When I just contracted the flu, a brutal flu that felt just as bad as when I got COVID. And like, you're so achy, you can't do anything. Your fever is like 104 degrees Fahrenheit. Your stomach is extremely upset. So when we got the flu, initially we had one more night before we had to change our accommodation in Guatemala. So we had to go across the lake an hour. And unfortunately, it was a really bumpy boat ride. That sucked. We were just wearing our masks, like, oh, please let it end soon. Please let it end soon. I just want to lie down. And this is terrible. Because it wasn't just like, oh, I have a cold, I don't feel so good. It's like, you feel bedridden, you're that sick, Like getting up to like get a snack is like the ultimate like task of the day. They have to like summon your energy for. So anyway, we arrived at our new place, and unfortunately, it was the most remote place we've had so far, and the furthest away from like any restaurants. It was like in a very local residential area. Because it was a little bit cheaper than being closer to the port where there's more restaurants. So we had to like walk around the streets, hail down a tuk-tuk to go to a place to get food. The only thing we'd really eat around us was bananas, sadly. And then we finally got comfortable. We had big beds, but then we had to change accommodation again, taking another boat. And this place was even more remote than the last. It was a really beautiful place. We went there knowing it was going to be remote because it had amazing views of the volcano. But there was literally no restaurants around, no snacks around anywhere. We had to like go into town and then just like buy a couple things and then like come back, all while trying to fight and argue with people, not fight, but like contend with people trying to scam us for prices for tuk-tuks. So anyway, that was what happened next with the flu. And then later on, like a week later, my YouTube got hacked again. Remember I talked about the hacking incident? Apparently maybe they still had like some information or some way to try and like get into my email that I couldn't find. I changed all my passwords. I changed everything I could, really. But they signed back in and I got hacked. And of course, they did the same thing again. And my channel got deleted. So now my YouTube job is gone, it seems. My teaching job is gone. My computer is broken. And Vanessa was trying to work a little bit, but her job, it was remote, but it was really difficult to work on this trip for her. So our income is like completely slashed, and we didn't save up a massive amount for this trip as we normally would because we traveled a lot the previous year, and spent a lot for that reason. And we planned on making this more of like a slow travel, work while we travel kind of thing to not kill into our savings and checking accounts. So stress was very high at this point. And then after this, we were going to the most expensive country out of them all, Costa Rica, to end, where the prices in Costa Rica are just as expensive as USA prices in many, many situations. So all of that together is the worst moment of 2025. And then also I need to cover Vanessa's credit card got hacked. So we're having bad luck with, digital security, I guess. Maybe we can get sponsored by like some sort of like VPN or digital security company, because we clearly need it after last year. So all that happened within a period of like a week and a half, 2 weeks, I think. So we were just so ready to come home. And we're like, we can't even enjoy it here. We're so like feeling anxious about money and just want to fix our problems. Just want to make sure my YouTube account is secure. Want to get my laptop fixed. So I can start like making YouTube videos again. And hopefully start teaching again once the contract is redeemed. But I didn't even know if my contract was redeemed. And this whole like hacking thing happened in Costa Rica too, after Guatemala a few times. So eventually, I think I finally got out somehow. I forget what I did, but things are secure now. Knock on wood again, knock on wood. So that was horrible. And that just left such a bad taste in our mouth from traveling because of all those things happening together. And it just felt like everything relating to our trip was just like, I don't know, bad luck. Vanessa believes in that more than me. I just believe in like unfortunate coincidences, I guess. And yeah, it just really sucked away a lot. We tried our best to have fun. Like, we paid money to be here. We're still going to make the best out of it. We don't know if we'll come back. These will still be great memories. And if we can't do anything about these situations at the moment. Why torture ourselves if we're spending money to be here? And we really did the best we could to hold that mindset. And also we were able to still be a little bit, not frugal, but budget minded, because we had a really not nice, luxurious, but a really like great setup in Costa Rica, because we had a place with a nice little kitchen, and there's lots of markets we would walk by and get some fresh produce and just make some delicious food with great views of like the wildlife around us. You could see like stuff happening in the trees, these massive trees. We'd see like toucans in them, and it has like all glass windows that are like you can see through one way, but they can't see in. So like you have privacy, but you just feel like you're completely out in nature. And there's a nice little like patio, like balcony area where we have like our morning coffee and like stretch and like the sun, and just, it was just really wonderful and like romantic in that way too. So anyway, that is a good way to transition to my favorite things, because that was terrible. But now that some time has passed, I'm able to look back more favorably on our trip and be like, yeah, there was some really great stuff that we did in Central America. And it is an amazing place in the world that, although it's not as cheap as like traveling through Southeast Asia, or affordable, I should say, definitely not as affordable. If Southeast Asia is like 10 out of 10 affordability, maybe Central America, it's like a 7.5 out of 10. You know, it's like more on the affordable side, but a lot of things still are going to be a lot pricier. So notably accommodation, and you get less for your money than Southeast Asia too. I think the infrastructure is more built up to have like nicer, more modern places. But anyway, that's another story. So favorite things about the trip. So I've already talked about some of them on the way, of course, like Omotepe. And I talked about our accommodation in Costa Rica. But actually, what was one of my other favorite things about my accommodation in Costa Rica is we met up with some friends, or some friends met up with us, I should say, that we stayed with the previous year in Switzerland, and they were traveling through Costa Rica. We met up in Puerto Viejo, which is a really beautiful place. I'll talk more about it later, on the Caribbean side. And they wanted to stay deeper in the jungle because his then fiance, now wife, she is Ecuadorian. She's like a half Ecuadorian, half German. And she comes from, her Ecuadorian side comes from an area deep in the Amazon, or I think it's deep. I'm going there actually next year, which is super cool. I'll tell you about that later, for the plans for 2026. So she wanted to kind of reconnect with like the nature of this part of the world. So what we did is we booked a tree house a little bit outside of the town, more up on the hills and mountains. I'm sure you can hear that siren. So just give it a little second. Hopefully they're going to arrest that hacker. Hopefully they found him and I'm getting my justice. No, I think it's an ambulance. But anyway. Okay, the treehouse. So it was very outside of our comfort zone, Vanessa and I. Like, we're not very bougie, but we do like a little bit of comfort, you know? And this place, it had no walls, right in like the Costa Rica rainforest. So your kitchen is completely exposed to nature. But that's so cool because you can see so many things around you. And we were able to see like toucans. We were able to hear the growler monkeys. Is that what their name is? I can't remember right now. I think they're growler monkeys. Anyway, we'll come back. I think it's growler monkeys. Yeah, I hear them at night. You had a shower outside, hearing the sounds like the rainforest around you. And then like a little hammock, a free-falling hammock outside like the living room area where you're just like out into the rainforest surrounded by nature. It was really beautiful and romantic. There's lots of creepy crawlies that came around at night that definitely scared me and Vanessa, or made us a little bit nervous, like massive grasshoppers. But it was really fun, and we were able to cook dinners and just hang out together, have our coffee in the morning, like being right in nature. And it was a really unique, really fun, cool experience that I'm really glad we did in hindsight. Although it did rain a lot, and like the road to get there got like really slippery and with the mud, so we had to like walk up, and it was kind of a pain in the butt, to say the least. But it was a really cool, unique experience. So we'll come back around to Costa Rica. But another really cool thing I did, or that happened, was Vanessa's mom visited us to join part of our trip. And she got us sick. How dare you? No, I mean, she probably did. Maybe it's someone from her work or someone on the flight, but she caught the flu first. But she's always wanted to visit Guatemala, and she knew we were going. So we said, hey, you should come join us if you can get time off of work. So she did. And she came and joined us she came and joined us. That sounds so weird. She joined us. That's all I'll say. She joined us for a nice like week maybe, visiting the beautiful town of Antigua, which is like set at the bottom of a volcano. Beautiful colonial architecture, world-class coffee, lots of history around you. Beautiful city. Definitely another, not a highlight, but Really cool place that maybe like globally deserves a little bit more attention. And it's very easy to get to because the airport is, I think, about an hour away, being in Guatemala City. So she came and joined us there, and then we all headed to Lake Atitlan together, which is like the true gem of Guatemala. It's the place many people love the most because it's a collection of these small towns that have heavily preserved like their Mayan culture and heritage, and like the arts and like the weaving and like some of the foods and the language especially. And you can stay in all these different little towns. They have different like feelings and vibes and things to do and views of the lake and the volcano. And a lot of people compare it to Lake Como in Italy, but like a very like budgety, off the beaten path kind of version. And I see why. It was really beautiful. So we were able to do cool, fun things together. And then eventually she stayed in a nice fancy resort while us, Vanessa and I, the peasants, we stayed in a little cheap Airbnb and just dying of the flu. Because she got it too. She got a half a day before us, and then we all just suffered together, unfortunately. Sadly. So anyway, that was really cool. And continuing on in Guatemala, something that we did that was really cool was we did a Spanish school. And Vanessa and I have always wanted to learn Spanish. We actually met in Spanish class in high school. So this was a really cool way for us to learn Spanish. We love learning. We love taking classes and like lessons and stuff. And while you do it, you're kind of in this little community where you do have individual like one-on-one lessons, or in our case, one-on-two, because you want to take it as a couple with a local teacher, someone from Lake Atitlan, and she was a really nice girl. I forget her name. I'm so sorry. I can picture her face. And really nice and patient. Taught us a lot of things. Gives you time to practice like open conversation, and she sees what you're lacking. We'll teach you some grammar, give you some exercises, give you a little bit of homework too, just to make sure you're getting the most out of your classes. And then outside of this, there's some kind of group activities with the school. So you can meet other students who are other people traveling, and it kind of just gives you a little bit of a fun community of like other travelers and also the local people as well. And you can learn some Spanish and practice it too, which is really cool and very rewarding. And I definitely want to do more like classes in schools abroad whenever possible. So that was definitely a highlight. Another highlight is the cacao tour, which we did in Omotepe. I talked about it more in the Nicaragua episode, but we ate at an amazing restaurant called El Pital. I'm messing up the Spanish words in my head. If you're just talking about going to Spanish school, I'm struggling. So, and it's a beautiful restaurant overlooking Lake Nicaragua, but actually on the premises, they have their own like cacao, not plantation, but cacao factory, I guess. That makes it seem like it's more big than it is, but cacao production, I'll say. And then what they'll do is you will like start to deshell cacao and eat it and talk about like the history for like the Mayans and the health benefits and like why it's so important to the people, the mission at El Pital. And then you can walk through and see literally from like start to finish the production of cacao. You can go up to a tree, pick the fruit, try the fruit raw, then go and see like the fermentation and meet the people who are actually behind it. And their families have like doing this for a while. They work with local farmers. So that it's like all like one ecosystem, giving them like consistent work and adding to the restaurant where they use the cacao for like the foods and desserts that they have, the coffees as well. And you eat so much cacao that you get like a little bit of a cacao, not high, I guess, like a head buzz, because it has theobromine, which gives you energy, and it does it in a different way than caffeine does, where you kind of get that rush and then that crash. It kind of gives you that anxious, like jittery feeling too, caffeine does, whereas theobromine, it's more of like a consistent small raise, and it's a little bit more calming, and it stays around for a little bit longer, and then it decreases more gradually, so it won't like kind of mess with your physical and mental condition as well, I guess. So that was really cool. I could go way more into detail, but that was definitely a highlight of Central America. Definitely. And now we're drinking cacao in the morning sometimes too, rather than just coffee. So it changed like our lives being home in that way as well. Some other highlights I want to say is back in Guatemala, we did cliff jumping in San Marcos, and I love cliff jumping. It's fun. Definitely scares me every time. I love heights, but I'm also afraid of them a little bit. So it feels like I'm overcoming a fear, and I get that like adrenaline rush and that anxiety. And the cliff jump here, it was really high. I think it was like at least 40 feet into the beautiful Lake Atitlan. You can see the volcanoes around you, and you can continue to like hike around this area. It's like a little bit of a national park that's really cool and has great views as well. And you can watch other people jump, and it's really fun. So that was a fun, memorable activity. I could have chose many from Lake Atitlan. Definitely, now that I look back on it, There's some other stressful things that happen there besides the worst moments I talked about, believe it or not. But it's a really cool, amazing area. And I can see why so many people visit there. And a lot of people even stay there for like a month and kind of like do a digital nomad kind of stay as long as the internet's good, because there's so much you can see and do around there. And it's really unique. So anyway, and then finally, back to Costa Rica. I was talking about the treehouse accommodation in Puerto Viejo, but more so than that, I just want to talk about the beaches just in general in Puerto Viejo, because Puerto Viejo, it's located on like the eastern side of Costa Rica, which is the Caribbean side. It faces the Caribbean Sea, and people say this part has like the most beautiful coastline, or like better beaches, I guess, a little bit more of like a wild feel, a little bit more naturey, less like resorty and built up for the popularity of Western tourists wanting to go somewhere beautiful close to America or the USA. So the beaches here did not disappoint. They were incredible, so beautiful, so many like palm trees just right on the shoreline, and the water is such a brilliant blue. We rented a scooter and kind of cruised around a few different towns, Puerto Viejo going east, and it's just so much fun. You can just hop off and check out a beautiful beach and swim around and hop back on the bike, go a little bit further and do the same thing. And the best highlight of this is if you actually go west from Puerto Viejo, there's a national park called Cahuita. And Cahuita, it's one of the most popular national parks in Costa Rica, I think. So we went very early in the morning to try and beat the tours. I can't talk. Try and beat the tours and the tourists. And you do this from the entrance we took. You do a boardwalk, or you go through the boardwalk. Oh my gosh, I can't talk. You go on a boardwalk through the jungle, and I think it's at least 2 kilometers. It's pretty far. It might be more. I think it's close to 2 or 3 miles. So, and then on the boardwalk, you're completely in the jungle. And then you can see so much happening around you, especially if you're quiet. We saw so many monkeys. We saw a sloth. I think we saw a couple sloths. No, we saw at least one sloth. Growler monkeys. We saw raccoons. We saw these other little animals. I forget the name of them. They like were running underneath the boardwalk. It's so incredible. And then finally, after you get through the boardwalk section, you reach the coast, and then you're walking, albeit through the sun, so it's very hot, but you're going to reach some incredibly beautiful beaches where you just totally jump in the water, cool off. The water is very shallow, so it feels like you're just like kind of laying in this tiny little bath created by nature where the water is a little bit still, and you just have dense jungle all around you as far as I can see, and beautiful tropical paradise. So it's just amazing. It's amazing. It was definitely my favorite thing we did in Costa Rica, and it's incredible. So those are the highlights. I mean, yeah, wildlife, nature, views, amazing water. What else can you really want when visiting Central America? So those are the main highlights. There could be more too, but I wanted to keep it a little bit short. So now that you have an idea about 2025, maybe you've learned some new places or heard about some things that sound really cool. Maybe you've written off these locations because maybe they sound like a little bit too familiar. It doesn't sound as interesting being someone from the USA going to Costa Rica as maybe it does like Thailand, but they're incredible and beautiful, and they're so close to home in comparison. So I really recommend you visit them. I definitely want to visit them again, although Costa Rica, you definitely need a lot of money, especially if you want to get like a rental car and you want to stay at some like nice, pretty places and really see all the country has to offer. Because getting around it can be kind of a big pain in the butt. I think I'll do a whole separate episode, maybe on Costa Rica. Definitely if I go there again and I visit some more places, because we really only focused on that Caribbean side, whereas like you can go more inland to beautiful volcanoes, but I figured we saw volcanoes in other countries. Didn't really get the beautiful beach paradise that we did in Puerto Viejo. And then you can go southwest to go to Tamarindo and Yaco, and there's another national park southeast. It's been a long time since I've done my Central America research, so the names are evading me currently, but anyway, so hopefully that was interesting, entertaining, and informative to some extent. But let's talk about the next year, 2026, the year that we are currently in, because things are going to be very different for me. And the reason is I only visited 3 countries last year. And we initially planned to visit more, but I think we were, and I don't want to be dramatic, but I think slightly traumatized by all those horrible events that happened and how vulnerable we felt. Whether it's like with my work, my job, financially vulnerable, because also this was right in tax season, and because I am, this is a business that I do, I have to pay or file my taxes, and then like if the government, I don't know, like you estimate and pay your taxes every quarter if you're familiar with like operating as like your own business or like 1099 employee or something, or save it, all for a tax season, and you still pay them quarterly, but you don't know if the calculations are going to add up. You don't know if the government's going to say you owe more. So it always feels nice to have ample security, ample like rainy day fund in case those things happen. And it just really was really terrifying. So we try to be very frugal, like all things considered. Like obviously we still like we're able to do some fun things locally or go out to eat or still do some activities here and there, but we try to be very frugal for the remainder of 2025 to not have that feeling, to build things back a little bit better. I know I'm getting a little bit vulnerable about my finances, but hey, this is real. This is real here. So now that we've done that a bit, we want to get back out and travel more, but we haven't traveled since all this went down. So our last like feeling is like all those feelings. So we need to get back out there, get over the trauma, remind ourselves that you can travel, you can do these things. We can be smart about it. We can be financially responsible when traveling. And if we have like these kinds of things happen again, hopefully we don't. And this is like a terrible like patch of like bad luck. And some poor decision making maybe as far as like my YouTube stuff. I'll take some responsibility for that. I got scammed. Yeah, because I don't think I ever said, but yeah, the program I downloaded gave them access to my computer, so they're able to go to my email and get all my information, and that's how I was like kicked out of my accounts and stuff. Anyway, don't want to rehash all that. So anyway, this year for us, it's getting over that like phobia or trauma, and getting back out there and traveling again and falling in love with it to the same extent that we have been like all of our lives, especially like in our 20s. And that kind of leads me to the next thing is this is a big year for us too, because this is the year we turn 30, which means we're no longer children now. We're not children now, but it definitely makes things feel more real. And that being said, being travelers, there's kind of like bucket list things we want to do, and kind of like turning 30, it feels like a certain milestone in our life, and maybe as travelers as well. So there's some locations and like kinds of trips that we wanted to do. It's kind of like a celebration of turning 30. And of course, there's so many more. I wish we could do. There's like, we never backpacked Europe, and that's like a massive one, and it's better to do it while you're younger. We visited Europe, but we never backpacked it, so I would love to do that. I would have loved to do like a RV trip, maybe around New Zealand or Australia, where you have an RV and just cruise around, not the whole country, but maybe a good chunk of that country, and just explore and have the freedom to do so. That would be amazing. And we'll get into some other stuff later, but those are like two massive ones that come to my mind. Going to Africa would be really cool as well, but I guess there's more time for that as well. So anyway, for our 30 milestone trips, something I've always wanted to do is do this, what's still kind of a hidden gem, not so much hidden anymore, but it's becoming a little bit more popular. But it's this really gorgeous bike route in Japan called the Shimanami Kaido. And this is west in the Hiroshima prefecture. And Japan, it's many islands. There's the one main island, kind of, maybe from your perspective, it looks like that. If not this way, I'm trying to mirror my thoughts and what I can see. But anyway, and then from there, that main island called Honshu, which has like Tokyo and Kyoto and all the famous cities, Hiroshima as well. There's like a little chain of islands that leads, not doesn't lead, but if you follow them with your eye, it connects or goes to this another main island called Shikoku, which is one of the like main 6 big islands, I think, in Japan. Is that how it works? I don't know. I might be messing up some information, but anyway. So what people can do is you can ride bikes across all these islands, because they made a massive bridge system that goes over what's called the Seto Inland Sea, which is this like sea in Japan, which goes between those 2 major islands, and all these small islands on the map are located on. And there's a bike route that connects all of them with some gorgeous bridges, some beautiful blue water, quiet little charming coastal towns, and some nice little cafes you can stop and eat at along the way, with great views of the bridges. And the bridges and the route, it's like, from what I've seen and heard, it's like effortlessly blending like man-made architecture into the gorgeous natural scenery to be this like heaven on earth. And the adventure seems really fun. You can take a couple days to do it and stay at an island along the way, and then you'll end up in your final destination. And you can travel further onwards, maybe in that island, or take a bus and come back the way you came. And just traveling on bike, it'd just be such a fun adventure. Definitely need to get my my leg stamina, good for the bikes. So Vanessa and I will do some bike training, maybe in a couple months here. And this has been something I've wanted to do for so long. We were initially planning on doing this tour trip to Tokyo in 2020, but something big happened. COVID, obviously. So we weren't able to go to Japan that time, sadly. But we were able to go a few times since then, twice actually. But haven't been able to do the bike trip. So that is something I really want to do. I've wanted to do it for so long, and this would be a great year to do it. So that's something, a bucket list trip for me, a bucket list activity just in general. And a bucket list thing for Vanessa is to visit French Polynesia. And I think the reason is, I wish she was here to tell herself. She hasn't been on in a few episodes. So if you want her in, you got to let me know. Type in the comments. Please bring back Vanessa. Please bring back the pretty girl and not just the boring, ugly guy. But no, I'm kidding. We all know that I can not be boring sometimes. But anyway, what she wants to do is go to French Polynesia because she wants to say she's gone somewhere cool, somewhere a little bit more off the beaten path. Not that it's like a financial flex, but it's like French Polynesia. Wow, I don't know anyone who's been there, and people still go there, but people mostly go for like the expensive resorts like Bora Bora, which that doesn't interest us as much. We want to go currently, from what we know, the island of Moorea, because it just looks gorgeous. It has those green exotic mountains that you see in Hawaii, and we just fell in love with Hawaii so much so that we love like that whole Polynesian feel. Maybe we've seen Moana a few too many times and we've romanticized it a little bit too much, but it just has like that like enchanting kind of like I don't want to say spiritual, but kind of like natural bliss and like belonging, I guess. I don't know how else to describe it. That Hawaii has, and the oceans look beautiful, of course. You can snorkel, you can see crazy wildlife, and it just has like that heavenly feel in a different way that the Shimanami Kaido does. So I think that kind of like encapsulates a lot of what Vanessa loves, and it's going to be expensive to get there. It's not as easy flying there as like Japan or like Thailand. So we'll make it happen. I really hope we make it happen. So those are two like landmark trips we plan or we hope to go on. It's not planned yet. So we're planning them for this year, 2026, which will be amazing. I cannot wait. And then of course we have other things. The next trip we're going to go on that we're currently planning is the Philippines. So we're going to Asia a couple times, and we're flying into Japan to get there because we found a pretty affordable flight. So we'll be spending like a day in Japan checking it out too because we just love it so much. But we're going to go to the Philippines, and it's giving us so much stress. Not to be like, oh, woe is me, but it's harder to travel around the Philippines than I realized. It's so many islands, so flying everywhere can be exhausting, can be expensive, can be inconvenient. Flights only run on certain days, and getting around from place to place might not be that easy as well. So although we have 3 weeks to visit the Philippines, we might only spend time on one island and just kind of like take it slower versus like jumping from here, jumping here, flying here, jumping here, jumping. It just, that sounds exhausting. And we like to, some places, I know it's better to be for a short period of time, but some places it's nice to take it a little bit slow, have some lazy days, and kind of experience a little bit more off the beaten path, or go a little bit around the island rather than just like the main few highlights and then move on to the next place. So that's still being planned, but the flight is booked. So we're definitely going to the Philippines. So that'll be really exciting. And also like the scenery there looks incredible. I think Vanessa feels a little bit of kinship with Filipino people because like the Hispanic and Philippine connection. I feel like there definitely is a thing there because like maybe the Spanish colonial influence. So we're looking forward to that. And the people there just seem so nice. We've met a few friends from the Philippines, and they're always so like smiley and like, I don't mean like easygoing per se, but just like well-spirited and kind and friendly. And they seem like they enjoy life. So that'll be really fun. And yeah, just the scenery and the beaches there look incredible, and it'll be a much needed winter escape. So that's the next trip. And then after that, what we actually booked already is going to Ecuador to visit our friends who visited us in Costa Rica last year. They got married, but they want to have like the traditional Ecuadorian ceremony in the Amazon from where her family is in Ecuador. So we're going to be going there, and that'll be a really fun, unique cultural experience too, I'm sure, because we're going to go far off the beaten path, outside of the main touristy areas in Ecuador. Not that there are any super touristy areas there anyway. Deep into the Amazon, meet her family, maybe see some like different like ceremonies, and it'll be a really unique experience with some of our friends there too, who are also like non-Ecuadorian, and be able to see our friends, the Ecuadorian German one and the German one, and say hi to them again. It'll be so nice and so much fun. So And then is there anything else? Oh, and the rest of the year, we'll see. That'll all be covered like the first half of the year. And then after that, we'll see. Don't have anything planned. I guess we'll, again, see our finances and like how we come to terms with all this travel and then go from there. So I think that covers. Oh, and then also, I do want to mention before I end the podcast, I remember talking about my goals for 2025 last year, and I probably should have revisited them a little bit closely before filming this one. Because we talked about what we wanted to do and our goals for the next year, kind of like our travel resolutions. So I do know that last year we mentioned that we wanted to connect with more people, meet more people, and we definitely did this year. Although we didn't travel as much or as many places or as many months, we traveled for a good 2 months in Central America, and we did meet a lot of people. We met people in the Spanish school, both local and other travelers. We met people in Nicaragua because we decided to stay at some more hostels. So we weren't like partying like crazy, but we met people and had lots of conversations with people from many different parts of the world, which is really cool and definitely interesting and fun. So I think we definitely, and also we visited we were able to see our friends from abroad who came to Costa Rica at the same time that we did. So as far as like building relationships and making good memories with people while traveling, that was something we wanted to do last year, and we definitely did it. And I hope we continue to do it this year, although this last year we've definitely fostered a lot of our relationships in our hometown too, and there's been lots of really big depressing family stuff that's happened, and I don't know if I want to get into that. It's not that I have any problem like sharing that with you. I just don't know how far I want to get off of like the whole travel theme of the podcast. But I guess it's worth saying, being a traveler, it can be hard to know the balance of like being abroad versus being away from home. If you're living too many other countries, are you really living there if you're not building a community? And this year we definitely focused a lot on our community at home, the people around us, and vice versa. And it's been less depressing that way, even though we wanted to travel more. But we definitely want to travel more in 2026 and have some incredible fun adventures. And besides that, I think the resolution would be to have like build back a healthy relationship with travel again. Whereas before, maybe we were traveling too much and we were too depressed not traveling, because every time we were traveling, it felt like we weren't really living. It feels like we were just spending time in our hometown without really wanting to, just catching up, not really like having a good life here. So anyway, I think striking that balance again, financially, with friends and family, and adventuring to new places too. I think that'll be the goal of this year, which I guess that should be the goal of every year, is having good balance in your life. But that's all for this podcast episode. Do you have any resolutions for 2026? Let me know, please. Have you gone to any of these places? Do you want to visit? I'd love to hear your own travel experiences as well. So thank you so much, everybody. Let's make 2026 the best year yet. Peace.